Hey guys, it's Kevin with my review for Mission Impossible Fallout. And what Mission Impossible Fallout is essentially about is basically it takes place a little bit after Rogue Nation. Ethan is still kind of haunted by the fact that he did keep Solomon Lane alive, and basically he's given his normal everyday task where basically he has to try to hold on to this plutonium and keep it out of the hands of some terrorists, but things go incredibly wrong when they end up losing the plutonium, and basically now the rest of the team has to basically deal with the consequences of this mission and how they're going to be able to, get things done without, without these catastrophic consequences, and things get way more complicated, and that's really all I'm going to say. So Mission Impossible Fallout in general, I was obviously hyped for this movie. I'm a huge Mission Impossible fan. I've really loved all of them, minus 2. 2 really is not that great of a film. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says, but it's certainly not a good movie at all, and it's definitely not at all what this series should have been. But I mean, I've said, everyone said enough about Mission Impossible 2. Ever since the 4th one, this has been, actually I'd say since the 3rd one, this has been one of the most consistent action franchises out there. It always seems like they're trying to top themselves, and they always do deliver. And from the looks of it, Fallout looked like it was going to be the most monumental. It looked like it was going to be the culmination of everything. And from all the reports and things like that, people are hailing this as one of the greatest action movies of all time. And I have to say that, yeah, they're absolutely right. Mission Impossible Fallout is truly that good. To be honest with you guys, while I was watching this movie, I really did feel like I was watching a new action classic, and we're gonna get into right now. There's so much to get into this film. We're just gonna get right into it, starting off with the cast. And just like every single Mission Impossible film, that is absolutely one of the highlights of this film. I think the entire cast brings it here. Everyone is really at the top of their game, but we have to talk about Tom Cruise. I mean, this guy, to say he's one of the most hardest working actors in Hollywood is an understatement. This guy is insane. There's truly, after this movie, there's truly nothing he won't do. There's so many times in this movie where he'll do these stunts, and I don't even know how he survives them, but beyond that, his acting in this film is absolutely incredible. We really do get more into the psyche of Ethan Hunt. He's a bit more conflicted in this film. A lot of the things that he's kind of been obeying, he's starting to feel a bit different towards, and I really did like seeing that. I like seeing how it's a bit of a more conflicted Ethan Hunt, and someone who is a little bit more unhinged and maybe is possibly going to go rogue. And I'm not going to spoil where Ethan ends up going in this movie, but Cruise did such an incredible job. I think this is truly the best performance he has ever given in this series, and I really don't think he's going to top it. I mean, yes, Tom Cruise single-handedly does carry this series, but this is definitely one of the best performances I've ever seen him give. He was absolutely incredible here, and you really do see how far this character has come since the first movie, and they really did that perfectly here. But someone else I really want to credit, who might have given one of the most surprising performances of the entire year, is Henry Cavill in this movie as the character of Walker. Now, this character, going into the movie, I have been very iffy on Henry Cavill, but that's mainly because I just have not really thought much of him. Sometimes I think he's good, but for the most part, I found him kind of wooden. Not at all the case here. He is phenomenal in this movie, and honestly, he was so good here that there were honestly points where he did rival Cruise's character. He's so menacing and so intimidating, and you really don't know if you can trust this guy or not. The second he's introduced, he's placed on their team, you're always kind of wary about him. You really don't know where he sides and if he really is on the IMF side or not. You really are not sure in this movie, and he just does an incredible job. The chemistry between these two is electric. I thought they worked so well together, and he truly is one of the best new characters we have ever had in this series, and I never thought I would be calling Henry Cavill amazing, but he is phenomenal here. I truly take back all of the stuff I've ever said about this guy, because he definitely can bring it. When he has a great script and when he has great material, he can definitely act his ass off, and this film very much does show that. Someone else who I really think set up their game is Rebecca Ferguson in this movie. Now, I really loved Rebecca Ferguson in the last film. I think she was definitely one of the highlights, but she is electric in this movie. I loved what she did as a character of Ilsa. After the events of the last film, she is very much set on, bringing Lane to justice. She wants to, she really does want to end things with him, and there's a conversation between her and Cruz in this movie, who, I gotta say, they work even better, I think, than they did in the last one. But there's this conversation between the two where they really get into her morality. I mean, this is someone who, she doesn't always play by the rules. She isn't always doing things based on what IMF tells her to do. She has her own agenda with Lane that I don't really want to get into, but where they end up going with her, I really did love. I absolutely love her inclusion in the series, and I think she's one of the best things to happen to this series, to be honest. I think she is just such a great addition. I love what she did in this entry, and Ferguson is truly shaping herself to be one of the greatest rising actresses working today. She was, once again, phenomenal here. And then really the entire cast, I think, really does bring it. Ving Rhames in this film, I think, really stepped it up. He has this great monologue that I don't really want to get into, but it really, again, just shows his history with Ethan and how far these characters have really come. Simon Pegg is great here. Alec Baldwin, Angela Bassett's a great addition. Michelle Monaghan comes back. Sean Harris, I think, even stepped it up here from the last one. Really, everyone just does a fantastic job. And this team in general, this is easily the best team we have seen in any of these Mission Impossible films. What I really have loved about these last three is that they really have made them more of team-ups. They used to be just Ethan Hunt and really no one else, but now it really is more of a team-up, and you really do see that here, and I just really love seeing this team work together. The chemistry that they have it's just so infectious. You really do feel that bond, and you really do feel that this is kind of the end for them, and I think really everyone, like I said, really did step up their game here. But now, of course, we have to get to the thing that a lot of people are going to talk about, which is the directing in this movie. Because unlike the other Mission Impossible films, which have all had different directors, this one actually takes a bit of a risk and brings back the same director for Rogue Nation. Now, on paper, this seems like a terrible idea. Why would you do this? I mean, it's worked so well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. After seeing this movie, though, I really couldn't see them getting anyone else. McQuarrie was absolutely the person to bring back for this series, because not only because he started this story with them, but because he is doing whatever he can to elevate the last movie, and he really does do that here, because yes, this is a really fun action movie, and there are a lot of fun action sequences, but what McQuarrie does is he really revs up the tension and really revs up the suspense. This is a very thrilling, suspenseful movie, and I thought that tone was so well done here. It never really feels jarring or forced. It makes sense why things are going to escalate throughout this movie, and I really did love his tonality here. I think he did such a great job with that, and like I said, he really is doing everything he possibly can to top the last movie, and I think he just did a phenomenal job with that here, and I really don't want to see anyone else direct these movies. I don't know if they have another Mission Impossible film planned, but if they do, get McQuarrie back. This guy knows what he's doing, and he is absolutely the person to direct these movies. I don't know, again, if they're planning on doing more, but he definitely needs to come back if they are, because he was just phenomenal when it comes to the directing. But then, of course, we do jump into the writing in this movie, which is just so sharp and so well done, and it really is unlike any Mission Impossible film we truly have ever had, and a lot of people have said this, and I'm gonna agree. There really aren't too many films you can compare this to, minus the first one and the third one. The first one in the sense where this is an incredibly complex story that has so many layers to it and gives you so much information, and you truly have to pay attention to everything that you've heard. And I love action movies like that. We don't see that a lot nowadays. Nowadays, everything is just spoon-fed to you, and, there's really no guessing. Like, it's so obvious what's happening, but this film really tries to put itself in the audience perspective and treats them with intelligence, and that's something I really did love about this movie. It respects its audience, and I really do love that this movie did that. Like I said, this is not a film that's going to spoon feed things to you. It assumes that you've paid attention to everything that's going on. For some, this might be a problem. For me, it is completely on the contrary. I absolutely love when films do that, and I wish more action movies did that. And I think definitely, considering where this film ends up going, this is definitely going to be a film to take notes from for sure, because I think they definitely know what they're doing on that front. It's like the third one, though, in the sense that pretty much from the opening scene, this really is a nonstop thrill ride. Something that immediately divorces this film from the others is that while the other films usually have this incredible epic sequence with Ethan hanging off of something and that's how they start, this one starts off very different. It starts off with him immediately getting the mission. So right off the bat, you know what this mission is supposed to be, and it doesn't go as planned. It actually does fail for him, and from there, there's this constant sense of tension. Even if it's a small conversation, which, again, compared to MI3, I would say this film does it better, because in MI3 it was a constant, constant action. There really was not a lot of room for, dialogue and things like that, and for talking scenes, and that is one of my complaints with MI3, and I think this film really stepped that up in the sense where even if there is a small conversation going on, which there definitely is a lot of room for it, you never really feel like these characters are secure. You never really feel like anyone is comfortable. You always feel like the worst thing could possibly happen, and they do such an incredible job with that. And again, it really just goes to show how well written these films have been. We have a lot of history with these characters. We know who they are. We know what could set them off. We know what definitely can put them over the edge. And this film really does do that very well. It really does feel like the next step. It really does feel like the culmination of everything in that way, and I think they did an incredible job here. And something else this film does so well is it really is not just Ethan's movie. The movie really does focus a lot on his team and who they are and why they're still here, and why exactly someone would still want to be in this team. A conversation between him and Rebecca Ferguson early on in the film, actually not early on, but like the middle portion of the film, I think really does solidify a lot of things about these films where, sure, they don't necessarily want to come back, but they feel like they're in debt, that they basically are indebted to, and that they owe a debt to Ethan because of this, and I just really loved getting into that. This is by far the most character-driven story we have ever had in these films. It's also the most plot-driven, but in terms of characters, these are the most well-written I think we've ever seen in any Mission Impossible film, and I think they did that so well here. And like I said, sure, the movie starts off and you think you know where it's going to go, but let me just say you absolutely don't. Particularly in the second half of this movie, things just go so off the walls very quickly, and not in the sense where it feels like they're doing too much and they're trying so hard to top it, because sure they are, but it feels like a natural progression. It feels like it makes sense why we're going into this very darker, a lot more just a lot more catastrophic territory. It makes sense why we're really going there, and as the film goes on, it throws so much at you, and you truly never know where it's going, and I really did love seeing that, I have to say. I really never knew where this film was actually going to go, and I just thought that was so refreshing. A lot of times with action movies, it's very easy to tell, okay, this is the villain, this is where it's going, and while Solomon is one of the villains, he's not the only villain in this movie. There actually is other villains here, and the villains that were in this film, I think, are the best we've had since MI3. In fact, even better than that one, because while Philip Seymour Hoffman was a great villain, he does not hold a candle to the villains in this movie. The villains in this movie are on another level. They are, they definitely have a very big agenda, and they really are trying to shake things up. And they do. They actually do succeed in this movie. I'm not going to say if they succeed till the very end, but they actually do succeed at some points, and that's something that we just have not really seen a lot. Ethan does feel very much outnumbered in this film. He doesn't really understand what he's got himself involved in, as Rebecca Ferguson says, and I think they just handled that so well here. Again, you really do feel like everything is escalating as the film goes on, and I just really did love the writing here. I could honestly go on and on when it comes to the writing. There's so much to love about it. I think all the characters are as well written as they could possibly be, and I just think they did such an incredible job with the writing here. Now, something else I was a little bit worried about was Michelle Monaghan's inclusion in the story, because obviously since the fourth film, they have told us that she is alive. What exactly do they do with her here? Well, I think they handled it very well. Constantly, he is haunted by visions of Lane going after, Monaghan, and him putting her in harm's way, and feeling like he is the one who caused this. And we're not sure when she's going to show up. I will tell you, she does eventually show up, and the way it happens, it's definitely not what you expect, but it definitely is the right direction for this series. Bringing her back was definitely a good decision on their part. It makes sense why she had to come back eventually, and I think they handled that very well here. Now, in terms of the cinematography in this movie, it is on another level. The cinematography in these movies have always been great. They've had this great, just very slick color palette to them, and everything just feels so polished, and, again, that's really a compliment for the entire series, and I think they've done that very well. But this one really does try to top it in another sense. I mean, every single location, every single scene, it just has this very sort of chaotic mood to it, and I think the cinematography really does hone in on that very well. And of course, the action sequences in this movie are just on another level here. I mean, honestly, throughout this entire film, I felt this way, but every single action sequence had me on the edge of my seat in a way that are different from other action movies. And I mean, I was hyperventilating, I was gasping. There was rarely a scene that ended where I didn't have some sort of audible reaction. And maybe it's just because action films nowadays, the action scenes just tend to be so forgettable and so rudimentary and very derivative in that sense that they just don't really do a lot for me. Maybe that's why I had such a big reaction, but that's how most action films should be. When a hero is in danger and a hero is in, when things aren't looking good for them, I should be clenching my fists. I should be white-knuckled, and this film definitely does have that attitude. There are so many times where Ethan will do things, and you're just not sure how he's going to get out of this. Not just him, but Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, what he is able to do in this series is just... he's insane. I don't know how he's able to do it. I mean, particularly this one scene involving this oxygen tank and this plane, basically. It was this, like, skydiving and everything. It was insane where they end up going, and I truly don't know how he was able to do it. It's just crazy the way that was able to go, and I think the action sequences were just incredible here. Everything you've heard about the bathroom sequence, yes, it is as savage and as brutal as you can think, and they really did step up their game with the action sequences. Not only are they on another level, and you really do feel like you're there, particularly in the climax of this movie, I really felt like I was right there with them on this mountaintop. I'm not going to say anything more, but it involves this mountaintop, and it's insane where they end up going with it. But you really do feel like they really did step up their game in terms of violence, in terms of just the stakes in general. They really have never felt higher, and it's everything you want in a great action movie. This is definitely going to be the standard to beat for a while, because again, I truly don't know how they were able to pull off everything, but they really did, and I was incredibly impressed with what they were able to do here. So yeah, the action sequences are just phenomenal. The score is actually kind of different this time around. There's this sort of like percussion sort of vibe to it, and I actually really did enjoy it. It worked particularly very well when the stakes were very high and you didn't really know where things were going to go. It just really did increase that sense of tension very well, and I think they did that I think they implemented that very well here. And the editing. This film is the longest in the Mission Impossible franchise, and It truly never feels that long. I was into it pretty much from the first scene, and as the film went on, it honestly did get better. The film honestly was so good, and I was so invested that when something crazy happens in like the middle portion of this film, I thought it was the ending. I really thought that it was actually going to end there, and it's just really because of how well paced this film really is. You really don't want it to end. It really does fly by because of how engrossed you are in the story in a way that the other films you just simply haven't been, and I think they did that so well here. And there are so many moments, like I said, where I audibly gasped and I was really into the story, just so much more than I was in the other films, and the pacing really does say a lot there. Like I said, the film very well realizes that, yeah, you need to have a lot of violence, but you also need a lot of time with those characters, and because the characters are so well written in this film, the violence and the events that happen feel so much more integral, and they have a lot more weight to them than the other films do, and again, it just goes to show how well done everything was planned out here. So overall, guys, Mission Impossible Fallout is truly everything you could want in a perfect action movie. It has incredible action sequences. It has actors acting at the top of their game, particularly Henry Cavill, who I think is really going to make a name for himself after these films. And yeah, he should definitely be playing the next James Bond. A lot of people have said that, and I would very much agree. It has the most otherworldly action sequences I have ever seen. Some of the most intense stuff I have seen in the longest time. It's got an incredible score. It really just has everything you could want in a perfect action movie. There really isn't anything I can think of that this film isn't gonna give you. Even if you didn't like the other Mission Impossible films, you might honestly like this one, because like I said, this really is bringing everything together. And if you do like the Mission Impossible films and you don't like this one, I don't know what you want in this series, because this feels like it's a mixture of everything we've really come to know, and then gives you more. Every time you think you know where it's going, it doesn't go that way. Every time you think, okay, this is going to go well for them, it really doesn't. Things are constantly moving in a different direction. Characters are the best they've ever been written. The stakes have truly never been higher. It's just everything you could want in a fantastic action sequel. Like I said, I really did feel as this movie was coming to an end, and as the movie was going on, that I really did feel I watched an action classic. I think this is going to be a film that for years now we're going to look at as the standard to beat. This is going to be a film that people are always trying to strive to make, and it's just never going to come that close to what this film really did end up being. This is going to be the next Mad Max Fury Road. This is going to be the next Terminator 2. This is going to be the next Casino Royale. And I know that's very high praise, but that truly is how good this film is, and it's so good that while in the back of my mind I'm saying I do want one more film, I don't really know if I do, because I really don't think they're going to be able to top this one. I mean, they just went so all out with everything, and they really just gave this one their all, that I really don't know if they're ever going to be able to, make something that is on the level of this film ever again. I think this is something that unfortunately just can't be replicated, and I think that just goes to show how great of a film it really is. But guys, Mission Impossible Fallout is truly the best film we have ever had in this franchise, and I am without a doubt going to give Mission Impossible Fallout overall an A+. Look, this has been a really great summer so far, much better than other years past, but this film literally, I think, just made every other summer movie this year its bitch, and I think it just really goes to show how well done this film is. Please, if you guys want a really great action movie and you feel like we're sorely lacking them, go see this film. You will see what action films are capable of, and anyone who says that action movies can't be as good as what they once were, go see this movie and you'll see that is absolutely not the case at all. Either way, guys, in my review, Mission Impossible Fallout, let me know if you guys saw this movie overall, left your thoughts in it. Definitely a lot to discuss about this movie for sure. I really did want to dive into spoilers, but there really was a lot to talk about, and I didn't want the video to be too long. But if you guys do want to message me about spoilers, definitely do so, because there definitely is quite a lot to talk about. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.